madhouse. So,
is it going through Casper?
yeah, it's like right through downtown.
Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition, Home Gadget Geeks. We're about 5 minutes ahead of time. So we're just a little bit of pre-show. I like to get things started. If you're out in the chat room, a couple of you out there, you might want to log in and join us here. If you're catching this on YouTube for whatever reason or on the live page, skip ahead 5 minutes. That's when we'll start. John and I are just going to kind of hang out and get caught up a little bit. And we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Okay, let's see. So we can talk about that. What else? You got any other gadgets?
Those two are the primary ones I've gotten.
Good. No, that's enough because I want to talk. There's some good stuff around that I can talk about. So
okay. I got a 3D printer.
Oh, really? What'd you get?
I got the Monoprice Mini. It was
how much?
$200.
Oh, that's not bad. What are you hoping to print with it?
Well, there's a little lens cap for the Xiaomi. Printed a lens protector for the little action cam. And I've printed a lot of telescope parts.
Okay.
Primarily, I'm doing telescope and camera parts because it's a smaller printer, and those were the things I needed the most.
I see it's $220 on Amazon right now. Is that about right?
Oh yeah. Okay. They tend to sell out rather quickly. I think mine was a version 4. I got it in I think March or April.
Yeah, they have a black and a white.
No, I don't remember color choice when I did.
There you go. How long have you had it?
4 months.
Oh, okay. Those 3D printers are interesting because there was a lot of pressure to get one a couple years ago, and then not so. They're kind of. I mean, you got one, but
everybody's got one almost.
Oh, I don't know.
There's a person in the Omaha Astronomical Society. He built his own, then he owns 2 other ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I know. I mean, that stuff off the desk. I mean, I've got some friends that are in the tech community that got them, but I don't know anybody beyond that that's really invested in it. I mean, for you, it makes sense. You've got some parts you can print and some of those other things, but
we have one at the Brain Exchange that we've been using for education, teaching kids.
I don't know. What do they print on them? I mean, all I've seen is gadgetry and
yeah.
nothing. Now, I mean, there's a guy that printed the parts for the prosthetic hand, those kinds of things.
One of the people in the Omaha Maker Group is making a satellite tracking station using 3D printed parts. So it has the axis motors so that it can move and track a satellite.
Right.
Seen one of these?
That's tell me what it is. It's the small.
It's a Bluetooth to RS-232 adapter. I was working on a project to remove some cables from a telescope. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get it to work.
Oh, it happens, right?
But that's just the complexity of what I've got. And
yeah.
I know a guy who's probably got a scope I could work on. I just convinced him to let me try it.
Yeah. So what is that? That does say, what's that adapter again? Bluetooth?
It's a Bluetooth to serial port.
Oh, okay.
So it's a DB9 serial port.
Got it.
And when you hook it up to your computer, it's like talking to a modem. You can actually issue like AT commands to get it to config. Yeah.
All right.
Did you find the pages for the Xiaomi?
Yes. Yep. No, I'm good. I'm good on those. All right. Actually, we're good on time here. We'll go for an hour or so and call it good. I've got some stuff to do up front. And then I always do the weather up front too, so I'll bring you in at that point and introduce you, and we'll talk about a little weather, and then we'll go from there.
I did 2 lights with my Google Home now too, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. We may do a little eclipse coverage up front, and then go into the gadgets.
Cool.
So I'll just have to see how it goes. 3:21. Holy cow, I'm almost at 3 1/4. Yikes. They just keep stacking up, John. They just keep stacking up. I'm trying to think. I think this year I'll be at 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, this December. So it's I've got a day left with my interns too. Tomorrow is the last day. We're going to do a little breakfast party in the morning, hand out some awards and recognition, and if they can work up until 40, and then they're done. Most of them, I'll keep 10 or 12 of them, I think, around for the fall. But my life will go back to somewhat normal at work, which will be nice. It's managing 50 people over the summer has been a little much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. You think the curve, you think it, with people on the bottom and difficulty on the side, you think that would go pretty straight line, or you'd think you get some economies. I don't. That has been my experience this summer. It got harder the more we added. We hired one out of that bunch. Usually they're not. Summer interns aren't up for hire for a full year, but we had one student who came who was ready to go. So got one good hire out of it, which was cool. And then I'll send, like I said, I'll keep 12 and send everybody else back to school. Just go. And then when I say keep, that means they'll work part-time for us remotely.
Sure.
They're Omaha Lincoln students, which is pretty cool. All right. Let me do this thing. Let's see. That's working. Let's bring this up. Hey, you ever done SETI? Work SETI at home?
Oh, stuff? Yeah, years ago.
Okay. I might reference that. I've gotten kind of back into it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
cool.
And I've formed a Home Gadget Geeks group for it. So just one of those. They're still cranking them out. I mean, they still are. They're still running scans of the sky and processing them. It hasn't changed in 15
I might
years.
ask you about your hardware.
Yeah,
you're going to bring it up. So
yeah, I probably will. We may do that up front too. So all right, let me crank this around, and here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geek, show number 321, recorded on August 3rd, 2017. Here in Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Carlson, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in actually a really beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. I'm fortunate tonight John Larson's with me. He's another Omahan here. It seems like, John, we're doing a lot more Omahans lately, but a pretty nice break right from pretty hot, I think, last week or the week before in the 90s. Pretty nice, don't you think?
Yeah, very nice. I was actually out in western Nebraska camping last week in 108-degree temperatures, so this is much nicer for me.
Yeah, no, nice break. And actually, as I'm looking ahead here, like I see 74, 77, 71, 74, 77 for the next. That's through the end of this week and into next weekend, and it's just so much better. Like, life is just better when it's that way. So we're looking forward to some great weather. We're going to talk about this here in just a second, but we are coming up on probably the most notable eclipse to happen in the United States, and it may be the most photographed and the most talked about and the most on social. We'll talk about that here in a second, and it's coming right through Nebraska, so we're super excited about that. Of course, for this show, we post the show notes out at theaverageguy.tv. A couple things to remind you of just before we get started. One, don't forget we're commercial free both on YouTube and Spreaker now. And we can do that just because, one, I don't like playing commercials there in that space. But if you do want to support us, and don't forget, Amazon took their link away from me again. So if you went back to Amazon, sorry, I don't have a link you can use. Use somebody else's link. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that. And there's a Patreon link out there on the page. Go to theaverageguy.tv. and you can get that. And actually, we had a new Patreon subscriber this week, and Chad, I want to thank you. Chad Johnson jumped in and supported us. And if you want to do that, head out to theaverageguy.tv, look for the Patreon link right-hand side, and you can subscribe between $1 and $5, whatever you want to do. We always appreciate that. We a couple other reminders. One is, John, I mentioned this in the pre-show to you. I formed a SETI at home team. And every time I say that, I feel like, seriously, are you looking for ET, right? Come on. But it's kind of fun. You know, it's the Mike Uyghur had talked about this, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I kind of got back into it. I got a couple PCs that are running it. It's just kind of fun to keep up with it. And so if you want to join us, you can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, and I'll send you the link over to you if you're interested. But we have a home Gadget Geeks team now, and I'm just running it on some low energy. You know, I have a N40L HP microserver that I run it on. I'm actually running it on the broadcast server here, so Core i3 540 box, and I've set half the processors to run on it, so it's not taking a ton of energy to get done. We run it out on our media center PC in the living room, of course, because it doesn't get used but a couple hours a night, and then it sits idle. And yeah, we're using energy, but I always think it's for a good cause. John, did you ever do the kind of the protein folding or the SETI at home packets?
I did quite a while ago. I was doing the SETI at home back when I had a Windows box at home, which was probably late 90s. But I have a friend who does the folding at home, and he has it configured to use his NVIDIA graphics cards.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is impressive. So I remember one time he upgraded his card to a newer version, and what took him 2 months only took him 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a lot like Bitcoin. Last week we talked about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, and this protein folding or the SETI analysis isn't that different, I think, from doing those math. It's doing basically math calculations. And I'm seeing now in the software, in the Bionic software, they're taking advantage of the GPU, and they get some pretty good speeds out of that. And so, it's funny you said you did it a while ago. This has been, I think I joined the SETI at home team in 1999. So almost 20 years ago. Still very similar mission. I can do a whole lot more packets today than I used to do back then. I'm at like 1,000,007 packets that I've done over time, and there's been a couple different versions and some other stuff going on, but you can run it. They have an Ubuntu version. If you wanted to run it on a Linux box, you could, and actually it's pretty efficient. I was running it on a little Kangaroo PC here, running Ubuntu. It crunched it pretty well. So if you're interested jumping back in, or you got a box you can run it on, it's software is pretty configurable, pretty stable. It's a good open source project. If you're interested in doing that, let me know. And send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I'll shoot you the link to our team. And I think it'd be kind of fun. I'll goof around that way if you want to get us done. Mike Uyghur and I also be forming, I think we'll be doing another fantasy football league this year if you're here in the United States, or even if you're not, if you like American football and you want to jump in on some fantasy football, we'll be doing that as well. So, okay, John, we have a pretty big event coming across Nebraska here on August 21st. The city of Omaha won't be in the area of totality. So we've got a solar eclipse coming through the United States. It's going to enter somewhere in the Portland, Oregon area up north in the Pacific Northwest, somewhere about 9 a.m. And it's going to make its way across the United States. And people are traveling all around to get this done. John, what are you going to do? Where are you going to be the morning of the eclipse here in the United States?
That is the number one question that I keep getting, is where I will be. Partially, I don't know. I might have some plans of places to go, but I'll really be looking at the weather to see if it's going to be clear in those places. So I might have a couple small places I want to go, maybe more off the beaten path where there won't be as many people. There's a big event at the Homestead National Monument outside Beatrice. That's probably going to have several thousand people. Most of the accommodations across the state have been full since last year. I know there's groups coming in from Europe to see it. I'm a member of the Omaha Astronomical Society, and we had a group from the Netherlands contact us about borrowing equipment while they're here to see the eclipse, because in Europe they have a lot more light pollution than we do here in some parts of the United States. So of course they'd have to be members, and they said, oh yeah, we'll be members for that week. So that's kind of amusing. It's going to be quite an event. If you can get out and get into the path of totality, it is quite an experience. I've never experienced it myself. The last total solar eclipse in the United States was 1979. And, totality is different because the whole surface of the sun is obscured by the moon versus other versions of eclipses, which are partial eclipses. We have been talking about this for 3 years in the club. We had a person come and talk in 2014 that he's going to be somewhere here in the United States. His name's Fred Espenek, and he is like Mr. Eclipse. That is his website. And he has some videos on there, and there's some tips. But there's a couple sites you can go to, like Great American Eclipse and eclipse2017.org.
Yeah, there's NASA is also tracking this event with quite a lot of interest. I mentioned in the beginning of the show, it might be the most talked about social media tweeted pictures. There's a kind of a big science experiment going on where people can join in, and I didn't get into the details of it, but I imagine has something to do with your phone and submitting some pictures or something.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what's going on there?
Yeah, there was a plan to put people like every 60 minutes across the United States from a location basis, and they were to report their experience and take pictures and submit them into the program. They changed that to 90 minutes because they weren't getting as many participants as they'd hoped. Mostly because if you agree to go to that position, you have to stay there even if it's cloudy. So a lot of the real hardcore astronomy types or eclipse chasers, they don't want to commit to something where they won't be able to see it. But I mean, there's a good chance that you'll be able to do that. But the important thing about experiencing an eclipse is, if this is your first eclipse, don't look at it through a phone or a camera. Just experience it by yourself, by looking. Look around you. Listen to what's happening. There's some videos on YouTube where you can see a gentleman put cameras on his chickens. And when the eclipse started happening, all the chickens went back into the coop. And when it ended, they all came back outside because they thought it was nighttime. You might even be able to hear crickets outside during an eclipse. It's a very strange event from what I've been told.
Yeah. And it's here in Omaha. We are, I think, a couple hours north of that path.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to go
be like 92%.
Something like that. And you need to go a little farther south. I think St. Joe is probably the right place to go to be in that path. It does start, and it's interesting because you would think this thing would start and would make a path around the globe, but it does not. It actually starts in the middle of the Pacific, makes its way on board here in the United States, is dark all through the U.S. and goes out to the Atlantic. It stops. And so it's a super interesting time, and it's going to get a lot of traction here. You'd mentioned do not look directly. I think for my audience, I don't have to say this, but I will. Do not look directly into the sun. If you are going to do that, they're making really great sunglasses. Normal sunglasses are not good enough. You really need to have some really dark filtered lenses if you're going to kind of do that. You mentioned this. You can use your phone if you want to watch it. Put it on your phone and point your phone at the sun, and that will filter out the light for you if you want to see that coming across. That's probably the way I'll watch the partial eclipse, is use my phone to see it go across that piece. So you can do that. So all kinds of great stuff. And everybody's talking about it. So John, I'd love to see some pictures. If you get some during that day, throw them into our Facebook group over at theaverageguy.tv. Post them on Twitter, whatever. I'm sure it's gonna be crazy. Right now, I'm looking at the long range forecast right now for that Monday. So Monday the 21st. Now I'm going to be in LA. I'm really disappointed with myself that I scheduled a trip. I'm in LA. I'm in Anaheim that day, getting ready for Podcasters Movement or Podcast Movement. And but here, 84 and sunny. So
That's
far,
pretty good.
yeah, so far it's looking pretty good. So are you got any camera stuff? Are you gonna try and film it? You gonna try and what are you gonna try and do?
I've actually just put some solar film in my shopping cart on Amazon, and I know that there's some 3D printed pieces I can get to make as a filter for my camera. I might do a wide shot, that way I'm not like always concentrating on it. Plus you got to take it off when the totality happens and put the filter back on. You can get glasses at Lowe's. I actually saw them there. Recently, though, there's been a lot of glasses that have been sold that aren't sort of certified. So you want to be very careful. There's even like an ISO specification for these. If you have number 14 welder's glass, that's fine. So number 14 is the important thing to remember. Is you can, if you've got a welding mask, you could use that, or go get some welding goggles at your local welding supply store with number 14. You'd look very steampunk, wouldn't you?
You're gonna see some crazy pictures
Yeah.
of people, of people with those things on. I think if you're in the path, I think your advice is just take it in. It's an
And if you're
interesting.
only 2 hours away, I mean, do it.
Yeah.
Versus
Drive
people
to it.
flying from across the globe, and you're only 2 hours away. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. I think we looked it up on the website where I'm at in LA, about 50, a little less than 50%. So we're not going to see much down there, and people in LA won't even care. So it's, it's going to be, I think, 9 a.m. And so I'll watch, I'll go out in the morning, watch it, and then I'm going to head into the office. So it is coming. It's on its way. Yeah. Make sure you're very, very careful when you're watching these things, and you never want to look directly into the sun. There's a good Brian Regan skit. Just look up Brian Regan and sun stare. There's a good Brian Regan skit about this. Do not look directly
Can I say something about the totality differences?
Yeah.
So Lincoln is just on the edge of totality. They're going to get about a minute or so of totality. But just going that distance to Beatrice, it's 2.5 minutes of totality. That's a big difference for that amount of drive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in that south. Beatrice is south, right, of Lincoln?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. An hour, maybe?
Yeah, it's about that.
Something like that. Yeah. And Lincoln's south of Omaha. So, you're talking about 2 hours down Beatrice. It's going to be, it's going to be jammed. The roads are going to be jammed. You're going to have trouble getting in.
Interstate's going to be jammed. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be crazy. But I think we're seeing. And so, so let us know how that goes. If you're listening to the show, let us know how that goes. We would love to hear what you did for it and how it worked out for you and what you saw. Show us some pictures. So cool. John, you got some. Let's talk a few gadgets you've got, and I'm interested in what you got, but then I want to talk about why you got one of them. So you got two Yicams. YI is what they are on Amazon if you want to look them up. But why'd you get two? Why do you need two, and what'd you get?
One is the action cam, so it's a competitor to any of the GoPros. Significantly cheaper, and has all like some of the same accessories. Even the mounts you can get will hook onto the existing GoPro mounting system. I was going to a wedding, and I was going to be doing some filming for that wedding. And I thought, an action cam would be kind of nice to have a wide shot, get crowds and things like that. It's small. People may not notice it if it's something small. And I really wanted to have an action cam because I didn't have one. I have a regular camcorder, but that's kind of big and bulky and not as easy to, you got to pack that thing and charge the batteries for it. You got to charge the batteries for the Yi too, but this charges off USB versus my old camcorder I have to plug into the wall, right? So this gives me a lot more options, especially when I went camping last week, of using a USB battery pack to keep it charged.
How long did it last for?
Well, I haven't run out the battery yet. In fact, I actually bought 2 extra batteries, and I haven't even used them yet.
And how long have you? How long do you think it'll last you?
If you're doing the high resolution, I bet you can probably get an hour out of it.
Okay.
Maybe less.
Okay. And when you say high resolution, what's the specs on those?
This one is a regular 1080. They actually have a 4K one out now. That's on Amazon, and everybody's been buying that one now. So that's why this one has come down in price. So,
and we're talking like $70, right? I mean, this is what I'm seeing on Amazon right now. So pretty reasonable if you wanted to get into, as opposed to a GoPro that might be $300.
Right. And have you seen those GoPro rigs that has a whole bunch of them to do 360 video?
Mm-hmm.
They've redone it with the Ycams, and that's a significantly cheaper option to have all those. And you can see some of those plans on Thingiverse where you can download them and print them out. And they'll act like a camera too. There's a shutter button on the top. Microphone, if you're where it's a little windy, you're not going to get good sound out of it. But that's not technically what it's for. It's to just get video for the most part. It actually has HDMI out on the back. So there's a micro HDMI on the back. It uses a micro SD card for storage. And what's nice is it actually has a 1/4-20 screw on the bottom, so you can use any existing tripod. So you don't have to have the specific mounts made for it. Now, I've actually 3D printed mounts for it as well that I've used.
Did you buy it with the waterproof case?
I did not buy it with a waterproof case. I probably should have.
Yeah, not much more. Maybe $15 or $20 for the case.
Yeah. But you can get those separate. You could print one if you wanted. It actually has Wi-Fi. You can download the clips from it or control it. You can do settings with it as well. The app's pretty good. I really like it, comparative to some other apps that I've used for controlling cameras. And it's pretty light. I thought about strapping it on my bike. We have an event tomorrow at AIM called the Amazing Tech Race. And my job is to go around and take photos of all the teams doing their run around downtown Omaha. But I didn't get a chance to print anything for this yet. So it'll just have to sit in my pocket.
Yeah, it's a good use for it. One of the things I got into in the winter when I was biking indoors, I was on a bike machine, was I would watch YouTube videos of people who had recorded their bike ride from wherever to wherever. Like I could find rides in Rome, or I could find rides in Germany, or I could find rides in the United States. I found this guy who biked from the Presidio up to the Golden Gate Bridge, and I know that route really well. And so it was a ton of fun to just, while I would, so on my phone, I would play the video, and then I would bike and watch the video like I was, and like I was there. And it actually made the biking go really fast to have something because normally biking, stationary biking is just boring. And so I thought, man, I should bring my Surface in and play these so I get a bigger screen. Play them on my Surface. My daughter has it right now, and I'll get it back here shortly. But so this winter, I will probably go back to that. But that's a great, I've always appreciated it. People go, why do you record that stuff? I always appreciate those guys who mounted those, the action cams on the front of their bikes, and then would bike, an hour or two, and it would give me a good workout. And it actually really, really helped. So get the case printed, and so you can get it on the front of your bike.
Yes, I actually have partially mounted. I did print one that goes on a broom handle or a paint stick, so I can extend it up really high in the air to do crowd shots. That I might be able to get done for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be too bad. I did look up the specs. This is actually a 16 megapixel photo in 1080p with 60 frames per second. So that's pretty good.
Good alternative to GoPro.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see the white version, but you may also see the green and teal version that's out there as well. That one seems to be pretty popular. I've actually seen videos where they've taken them apart and added an external microphone port to it, where they just have it coming out the top. Certainly helps increase it. If I was to start to do more vlogging, I would probably use this to do it.
Okay.
Just because it's easy to handle and such.
Yeah. Well, and the 4K version is pretty expensive, right? I mean, I think we're $400, or let's just say a little north of 300 for sure. So if you're going to go, and our GoPros now, they're 4K.
I think the top end one is, yeah.
Yeah. So I think once you're in that 4K space, you're going to be, you're back into that price. But I think for a little, I mean, and I think probably, we can have drones to thank for this, driving down 1080p price of 1080p cameras, for $70. And if you're just going to do some goof around stuff outside, that's a pretty good alternative. You also picked up
breaks.
Yeah, right on. Well, I still want to throw $70 away, but
yeah,
it's better than $400. You had also picked up a dash cam. And what's really interesting, in Europe, dash cams have become, especially like in countries like Russia, dash cams have become a standard part of the car. Everybody's doing them because so much insurance fraud. But in the United States, they still haven't picked up for the most part. But one, why'd you get a dash cam? And then I want to talk a little bit about, do we need them here in the U.S.? So why'd you pick up a dash cam?
I picked up a dash cam because I was sort of like trying to justify making a smart car without originally having smarts in it. I'm thinking about getting like the automatic gold and putting that on the ODB2 port. But I recently picked up the Pioneer AVIX 8200. So now I have Android Auto in the car. So I figured, why not add a little dash cam and make a little bit more out of it? So this guy does do almost the same specs, 1080p at 60 frames a second. And the video quality is amazing. I've tried to pull the card out and put it in a computer, but it says it's not formatted. So I'm not exactly sure the card format, but if you connect to it with the app, you can see all the videos. So it doesn't come with a card. You have to buy a card. I put a 64 gig card in mine, and it just loops, continually records, and erases the older ones. It has shock sensors, so if you bump it or you hit a hard pothole or somebody runs into you, it says urgent recording and kind of marks that video to save. I've always triggered it when I've been taking my sunshade off of my car. That's how I know it works. And it actually has lane departure assist. So if it'll tell you if you're departing the lane. I've tried it. It was telling me I was drifting when I was going in a straight line, but I think that's because the lane I was in didn't have any painted lines on it at the time. So it kind of got a little annoying to tell me something that wasn't exactly happening. But I just need to take a moment out to sit down and go through it again. I think there's an option to let it stay running. So I'll turn it on. So it's quite wide comparatively. And after a moment, it should switch off the camera, because a screen in your car is really distracting. So it switches to a camera, like a clock mode. That way it's not as bright in your car, especially at night. I'm making a fool out of myself.
Can you set that to come on? That's okay. Can you set that to come on? I assume it's connected to some kind of power source.
Yeah, it's connected to USB, and by default, it powers up when you turn the car on.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it senses that and turns itself on.
Yeah, and when the power is removed, it tells you, like, here's how long you spent driving, the recording, and then it shuts down. So it's like 15 seconds, after you've stopped the car and turned off the power, it'll shut itself off.
Yeah, and on Amazon right now, these are just $50.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. You know, we have, so Sarah, my wife, we bought her a Subaru, a 2016 Outback, and Subaru has this what's called eyesight, and it's it's a bar across the front. It's kind of hidden behind the rearview mirror, and it's got two cameras on it, and it does all the safety features of keeping you in the lane or braking when something comes in front of you. It's got this pretty awesome cruise control where you can get in with a car and you just say, I want to be so many lengths behind this, and it will just keep you at the same speed as those cars. Sarah's been using it and working on it. She just took this long trip to Kentucky, and it's got the lane assist. So if you go outside the lane, it beeps at you type deal. But I've always wanted to see what that looks like. Like, I want to see what the eyesight sees, and I want to see all the calculations it's making. Like, because it's finding the lines and doing some interesting visualizations in the software. I wish you could hack it so you could watch that. She has a really nice probably 9-inch screen in the console, and I'd love it if they would let you. Now they won't, because it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
But I'd love, as a passenger, to be able to tap into that feed and be able to see what's going on. This is interesting because you can't take an old car and it, you're not going to get all the functionality of braking and the assist and those kinds of things. But it would be interesting to have that. And you said, where do you mount it in your car? Where have you put it?
I put it right. So like if the rear view mirror is here, it just sort of sits behind it. So I don't have it in a way that's going to distract me too much or shine in my face when I'm driving. My car stereo does that enough for me. But the compared to like my new stereo, the stereo has options for front and rear camera in it. Now, I don't have those options installed, but it's interesting that you can get front and rear in those units, but they don't record like this would record. So this, technically is always on. If I wanted to do a time-lapse movie, maybe I could download them every hour and then string them all together and speed them up. Say, here's the trip that we went to Western Nebraska, and have a nice little video with it. There is an option to have a watermark where it says "ye" in the corner. I did that for the first few videos, and I turned it off. I uploaded them into my Google Photos account really easily, and they're still in there. So it reads the format pretty good. I think there might be some conversion from the app when it's connected.
Does it come with all the mounting hardware that you need?
It does come with the mounting hardware, yes. It's a 3M tape type, so it'll stick onto the windshield. If you're on the Amazon page for the device, if you scroll down, you'll usually see like a Transcend suction mount. People have been buying those because those are removable. So like if they want to use it in a second car, they'll pick one of those up and have it so they can move it between cars. It gives it more portability, especially if you travel and you get a rental car. There might be issues with insurance if you have an accident in a rental car. Having one of those in your bag, it's not such a bad idea. My wife had an accident and she wished she had one in her car last fall.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what convinced me to get it, was after that accident.
Right. Yeah. Well, Ted in our chat room was saying he's got one front and rear as well. Asked him why. He's on the road a couple hours a day, and he's in the Chicago area, and the driver's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And this is why I mentioned earlier, in Russia, the insurance fraud has gotten so bad, and people hit and runs, and it's just really bad there. Everybody's got a dash cam. Now, a couple of years ago when the meteor came in and blew up over Russia, wherever that was at.
Chelyabinsk.
I still couldn't pronounce it, even though you just said it. A lot of that footage was captured by dash cams. And, so it's very interesting. I wonder if there's going to be a trend here in the United States, I haven't felt it or seen it or heard people talk about it yet, but do you think this will trend and there'll be more of this? Unless my wife has it built in. We don't have any access to that video. That's the one thing I don't like. Like, it would have been great if there was a Subaru app and we could get access to that video, that's on there.
I think
Maybe
primarily people who work in vehicles probably would be using them first.
Yeah.
Over-the-road drivers, CDL, Lyft and Uber drivers. Some of them use it pointed towards the car inside. So like there have been instances where passengers become unruly and then they get them on video. Or they use an app on their phone for some similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many. I mean, I've seen videos recently in the United States where it's accidents on the interstate or something like that, and it's caught on a dash cam. And it's high from a high vantage point, so it is in a semi truck.
Well, I've seen YouTube videos of busts that go bad or tickets that go bad or whatever, right? And we're seeing a lot of our patrol cars come completely dash cam enabled now. They're all doing it. Lots of civilians are having them too. Just you get pulled over. Ted was saying, a lot of the police are now looking for dash cams before they pull you over. They're probably going to be a little more careful.
Behavior change.
Yeah. Yeah, they're probably going to be a little more careful. So Emily says, I bet there's a market for fake dash cams if cops are looking, right. Just although at $50,
I bet you there is.
Like I'm thinking like this would be cool this would be a cool little toy to have. My 06 Honda doesn't have any of this stuff, and my wife's car does. And my next car will probably be a Subaru that has that. I like the safety features they have in there. And I'll probably go that way. We're not going to do that for a couple of years. So maybe I can justify $50 for a version. What do you do with the wire? Do you just run it? Do you just drop it down, or have you routed it somewhere?
I have it inside the headboard a little bit. I took small pieces of Velcro and wrapped it around the wires, and then shoved them up inside the headliner so they would stay. I had to run a microphone anyway for my stereo, so I just included both of them together. And then it comes down the A pillar. I haven't quite dressed it up yet. It still kind of goes over the top of the steering wheel, but it's not in my.
And they give you a long enough. They give you a long enough wire for all that.
So I have an Outback, and it comes all the way around, comes down the A pillar, over the steering wheel, and down to the accessory plug underneath the radio. And there's still about 2 or 3 feet coiled up.
Oh, okay.
And it comes with a little adapter for plugging into the accessory plug. So it has a little power plug.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's cool. Yeah, that's it's one of those things. If you would have asked me, before we started talking, what I think a dash cam would be, I would have said $150, $200. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
They've certainly come down, and they'll probably have, who knows what kind of features they'll add to the new ones. I know they have some that have cameras going both directions in one unit, so forward and aft. Although you won't get much out the rear window, but you get people. Like if you have a teenager, maybe that style would be something to have.
check on the teens driving the car.
And you never know. Maybe they'll have GPS built in so they could tell you speed and record it into the video. That's getting into a little bit higher class of unit, but we've seen how cheap GPS units are for cell phones. Why not?
Right. Yeah. Well, and why not make a parent app for the phone where the phone actually, when you think about GPS and speed, I think I'm pretty sure there's some apps that do that already, where if the phone speeds up, it'll
text.
It'll tell you. Well, yeah, then certainly from safety, but it'll also send a little alert notification that says, "Hey, I'm going 90 miles an hour right now." And Ted says he routed inside the trim and needs to dress it up a little bit better as well. Yeah, I'd have to think through that on my Honda to see what would be the best. I might go the corner with it. I don't know. That's rather than have it up, I may have it down on the dash, try and get far forward. That Honda Civic I have has a really low profile front windshield.
Yep. We have an 06 Civic. It's got that sloping front windshield. Now, I will say, don't fiddle with it when you're driving, because that's a bad thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't be messing with your camera.
Also, you should probably turn your Wi-Fi off on the device. Since it has Wi-Fi on it, and you pair your phone to do some settings, I've left the Wi-Fi on. I'm like, why am I not getting any phone call, messages? It's like, why am I on Wi-Fi? Oh, I left that on. I got to turn it off.
You've attached to the camera with the Wi-Fi, and of course, it's not connected to anything. So, it'd be interesting to, just think about some of the other capabilities that, from a travel standpoint, we've pretty much gotten rid of all GPS devices, but this could have some of those features in it where, all this stuff is in your phone. I get that, but I don't always want my phone doing all that stuff. It's kind of nice if it would just be dedicated in the car. When I pulled in the garage, it would download pictures and it would download all that GPS information for storage automatically. Why shouldn't that should work? And sure, I could do it on my phone, but I don't know if I want my phone doing all that stuff.
Yeah, your phone gets pretty warm when the navigation maps is running anyway. And if you're going to do I don't try to do any navigation on my phone unless it's plugged into power, because it is such a battery drain on some things.
Yeah. Well, in this case, right, so you're plugged in, you pull into the garage, you turn the car off, it shuts off. Is there much of a battery in the dash cam device? How long could it last unplugged, do you think? If you're doing that scenario.
I'm not sure. I never thought about doing that, actually. Because there was video 3 weeks ago on the news of a person who had their car broken into, and the dash cam was still running the entire time they looted the car, and they were on the video. So police were using the video to go after the people who'd robbed them.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought maybe I should see about how to turn that on. I'm in covered parking downtown when I'm at work, so there's no real chance of getting to the car in that situation. But if I'm out somewhere, I thought if it was easy to enable, then I would probably do it. But you have to turn on the Wi-Fi and open the app, and it might get a bit cumbersome to enable it every time you wanted to do it.
True. Yeah. Well, and it would be interesting to, that might be one of those things where if it's a little bit smarter, it senses the power is going off. It checks to see for a home network. If it finds it, it uploads to,
that would be cool, yes.
I'm probably asking too much.
Well, there are apps that I believe you can get for like an Android phone that would have some of the same functionality. So if you have an old phone lying around in a drawer,
I've thought about
probably explore it.
I've thought about just mounting I've got a Galaxy S2, an old S2. Maybe it's a 4. I think it's an S4. And it's one of those things where it's got the battery and it's kind of shot now, but I could easily replace that. And then just leave that in there. Now, phones in heat and cold are not great. This is where we live in a part of the country where it gets super cold in the winter, although less cold than it used to get, but it still gets pretty chilly. And then it gets hot in the summer. It's super hot. So I've been a little hesitant. These kinds of devices are built for that, to handle those kinds of temperatures. I'm not sure a cell phone is.
Right. So if I hold this up, there is vents in the unit. You can almost see through it a little bit to keep it cool. So it's on both sides, so it does flow through. And that's sitting right on your windshield, right in the sun. So
I'm sure it's built-in rated for that. I'm not sure my phone is. That'd be awesome. I've thought of that, and that would be one of those things that you could, set it with if this then that would work. You could, hey, when when I get in the proximity of this Wi-Fi range, start uploading the content. And I'm sure there's some apps you could run, but it gets a little ridiculous now when you get in your car and you're pushing, like, I get in, I plug my phone in, I throw it on the dash, I set the podcast app, I hit play,
Yeah.
I hit the Bluetooth, because I'm in an older car, so I don't have Bluetooth in there yet. And so I hit the Bluetooth thing, and then, you're doing a bunch of, this is where aftermarket gets a little crazy, because you're doing a whole bunch of things
Mm-hmm.
on aftermarket. And you're just like, geez,
That's kind of why I went with the Pioneer in my car with Android Auto, is it gives me those apps on the display that I frequently use when driving. So the podcast comes up and the whole screen is the podcast.
Right.
And I can choose it from the list.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you have an aftermarket. That's an aftermarket monitor, right?
Yes.
So there, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 Well, it is one of those things when we think about you and I are both in this spot with our cars where we're pre all the really cool stuff, post the really bad stuff. It's not like we have cassette. You don't have cassette in your car, right? It's just the CD, right? So it wasn't long ago I had cassettes in my car, but and so there's some really cool stuff that's coming, or that's here, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're retrofitting them, it's like I am pretty content. I pop in my car, throw my phone up there. That's how I do everything off my phone. But I have thought, it'd be kind of nice to have a dedicated unit in there. And this dash cam is interesting, especially at the $50 price point. You kind of go, maybe it's worth having for some things.
Yeah.
Tony saying in chat, he's a little disappointed his truck didn't come. His new one didn't come with Android Auto. How are you liking Android Auto?
It's there's pluses and minuses, and the minuses are how I use my phone on a day-to-day basis. I primarily use Google Voice. So while it is supported on the phone, trying to make a phone call on Android Auto is a little bit difficult. It sort of doesn't do it. But if I'm using the regular app, then it would work fine. So text messaging works good. You can dictate messages or have it play back messages for you. It reads the message to you. As we know how Google's Android messaging, well, actually, just their whole messaging strategy has been a little bit all over the place with Hangouts and Allo and versus things. That can be a little confusing because you can actually say the command send a Hangouts message or send a message. That's two separate apps that you're asking it to do. But primarily, I'm using the maps and podcasts and music. And just last week, Waze is now available on Android Auto, which is great because I really love Waze.
Yeah, my wife won't use anything but Waze. She just hates Google Maps. She's like, gets me lost every time. No, I've never been lost on Google Maps, but she says
they're owned by the same people and the same maps.
I know, but
it's all about routing, right?
Yeah, and perception. She's just like, no, she won't use anything but Waze. But yeah, and I've had a lot of trouble with so I have an iPhone 6 and trying to talk to Siri. I mean, I am so desperately trying to get to this point where I could actually do some really good stuff on the phone while you're driving. No, and I got a crappy Bluetooth microphone. I bought the Logitech kind of auto setup. It's got, it sticks to the dash and then it's got a magnetic mount to that. And it's one button push to get Bluetooth enabled, which is nice. And it plays great. It plays the stuff on my phone great. But the microphone in it is just awful. And I know, so once you connect to it, then of course Siri is listening through that microphone and it's awful. So it's really not fair to compare the two. I'd love to get a better Bluetooth setup where the Bluetooth's actually up, actually where you're putting your dash cam up there. That's really where I want the Bluetooth, or I want the microphone. It'd be kind of nice if you could take that dash cam, put it up by the, stick it up by the rearview mirror use that as the audio input because it's got a Bluetooth, right? It's got a microphone on it as well. Is that on the front of the camera though? The microphone?
Yes.
On the dash cam?
It's right below the lens.
Yeah.
So, I've never enabled it.
Yeah.
I've always had the microphone off. So I don't know what it sounds like. I'm sort of like, I don't know if that's a feature I want. Hearing it play back my text messages.
Emily says she's with Sarah. She won't give up her ways. I'm with you. I do like Waze. That's kind of my preferred, even on the iPhone. That's what I like. And then Tony says, so Siri doesn't work well. She doesn't work as well as she does on that commercial with The Rock. That is for sure. Holy moly. Even when I have my phone and I'm trying to say, hey, Siri, where's my phone? Probably in my pocket at this point. I don't get a lot of good, at this point. I should just be able to say, hey, Siri, and then put a command in and, I got nothing. So it's I have just those have been super frustrating to me. Some of the newer builds of Cortana for Windows 10 they continue to improve Cortana, and that's pretty cool. And that's pretty cool to do at the desk here. Of course, the Amazon devices are really well, but they don't search very well. You and I have been through this before.
Yeah.
You liking your Google Home still? Is that and are they making updates to that thing?
Yeah. Just today. You could ask it to play news from like Anchor FM, or you can say, play me the news from Daily Tech Headlines, and it'll play that podcast specifically. So it's sort of like similar to the flash briefing on Amazon Echo. And I've actually got it working to control my lights in my house now too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then that's getting better as well. That's something the Echo has always done pretty well. Lights work. We've had studio lights on in here. I've got all the overhead lights in the basement all rigged up to this device now. Those are working great, and a couple different kinds. Philips Hue. I've got a Linksys plug-in. I've got a TP-Link plug, and so I have 3 different protocols down here. Oh, and I've got I guess that's a Hue light. Now that I think about it, we had the Hues upstairs and we changed lamps, and so I had an extra one. So I brought a Hue down here. So and renaming them was easy. Go into the app, change the name of them, and I put them in groups. We have a basement group. We have an upstairs group. So that's just working. Like sometimes I have trouble with it hearing me, but every morning as I'm walking out, I say, hey, device, turn off all the basement lights, and I'll go down. Okay. And that works great. I imagine the Google Home is catching up.
Yeah, I'm using the Belkin Wemo plugs to do mine, and it works pretty good. They certainly keep those devices updated. About every couple weeks, I get a firmware update notification. I got a Wemo Maker. I don't know if you've seen those. It's essentially got a sensor and relay terminals on it. So I've added it to my garage door, so I can use the Wemo app or tell Google Home to open or close the garage door. That's pretty handy.
Yeah, no, that is nice.
Because if I accidentally leave the door open, I want to be able to know if it's open and close it. Because you always get busy in the morning, you have to rush out, and it's only happened once, but it was once too many.
That's the one, and I'll go, I'm here, the garage door is right over there, so I'll walk out, go by it, open it, visually check. Is it open? No, good. Shut it, right? I can close it from right there. I don't, it's nice. I kind of wish it would alert me as, it would have this, I'm walking up the stairs. Maybe it knows I'm going to bed and it just shuts it if I forgot. It's because I should probably shut the door. I do have the lights set here in the basement. If I forget to turn them off, they all go off at like 12:30. So if I, for whatever reason, forget, I've got one more set of lights I need to get on. I've got them on an old school switch.
Oh yeah.
Turn them on and off that way.
I have one of those as well. Exactly the same.
A total.
I think that's a GE.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It's super cheap at Lowe's or whatever, right? Great to have down here. So I got to get that. It'd be nice to get that on a switch just from a power savings. Those are using 5 bulbs, and I have 5 fluorescents in there, so it's not too bad. If I put 5 LEDs in there, it would get even better.
Hmm.
But still, good. Good to turn them off. And Emily has mentioned, and we were talking about ways and directions and listening to podcasts. It is a little annoying. Like sometimes I'll turn, you're trying to listen to a podcast and you're going somewhere, and they get a little chatty. You know those.
Your mind drifts.
Yeah, well, and they get chatty on the. No. I mean,
Yeah.
the direction apps get super.
Oh
chatty,
yeah.
and you're like, okay, okay, like enough. I know I'm turning left. Now what I should just do is go in there and turn off the alerts. Right. That would be, unless I'm in a city where I don't know really where I'm going.
Yeah. I usually run in alerts only, like construction or something in the road. It's primarily I use it for like the traffic. If there's going to be construction or delays, that's primarily what I mean. I know how to get to work, but I want to know if there's going to be a problem going into work.
That's the problem. Is like, yeah, like with Waze. So it's like, okay, I'm going to set my work location. I'm going to go, and then it tries to give me these directions, and I need to turn off those notifications. That's
Yeah.
the thing I need to do. Go in there and
Yeah,
turn.
just set it to alerts only.
Yeah, that'd be the smart thing because
Nope.
I want it to reroute me. Now we have tons of construction going on. They're rebuilding the 480 bridge, and so it's down all the time. And I'm picking different ways to go all the time. I'm not sure ways. Yeah, I've got a way now. Hey, let me tell you, because you're a local guy. One of the things I've done now is, so I'm going up 480 and I get onto 80 and go into Iowa, and then I shoot up 29 and I come back into downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I have a new place to work because it's a different route that I normally take. And when you come in across the bridge on 29, you see downtown Omaha. It's a really beautiful kind of way to come in. And I'm like, the other way, you shoot down 480 or up 480, and it's just industrial. It's not that great. You're sunk down. And so I thought, this is, I'm kind of glad they closed this bridge. Like, this is a more, I cross the river. It's a little more beautiful. It probably takes me 5 minutes longer. So it's not like it's a big deal, but it's weird. It's like you come across that bridge and then boom, the cityscape's right there. You see the city of Omaha and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice. This is where I work. It's beautiful. So I think maybe there's something to that. I might just change my route in the future.
And one of the other things too is gas is usually cheaper in Council Bluffs.
It is a little cheaper. Yeah, it is a little, and it doesn't take me, too far off. I go across the river up by the casinos, and then you shoot in, and so it's not too bad. But I just thought, I didn't know what a difference in my attitude it could make of seeing that something different. Yeah, seeing something different in the morning. So. Well, John, we're coming up on the hour. I do want to take this chance to hang around here for a second. I do want to take this opportunity. Every once in a while, we like to thank our Patreon supporters by name, individually, as they do this. And I thought tonight might be a good night to do it. So if you are not supporting the show, by the way, no guilt trip here. I just like to read, and give credit where credit's due for those folks that do support the show financially. There's a bunch of you out there. And of course, we always appreciate your support in what we do. Everything from we have some $10 a month all the way down to $1, and that's awesome, whatever you want to do. But guys like Brian Auer, Brian's normally out here, so I don't see him tonight, but Brian and Paul Barron, MB Gilbertson, Kevin Schoonover, Justin Simmons, John Biggs, Dennis Pillow, Nathaniel Lindley, who comes on here as a co-host from time to time, Chad Johnson, I mentioned him. Chad, brand new to Patreon, $1, boom, that's how you do it. You just jump in there, and $1 gets you in. Gavin Campbell, of course, Emily Prokop, who's out there in the chat room joining us on Thursday nights. Emily, it's always great that you're here. I'm not sure why you are, but we always appreciate you coming out. Mark Robson, who's Mark and Mike, of course, did the big barbecue show. John, you barbecue at all? You do any grilling?
I have a grill, but I haven't done any cooking. Maybe when I was camping, that counts.
Yeah, totally. But yeah. we got to get you grilling. I'll share in the post show. I'll share a grilling story that I had with you, and maybe get you fired up about that. Eric Janowski, Peter, Jim Shoemaker, Dwayne Johnson, Malcolm Lacey, Mike Uyghur, and of course Steve Sleeper. Steve helps build one of my. You know Steve?
Yeah, I worked with him.
Oh, is he over?
He's over at. I worked when I was at CAS. I worked with Steve.
Okay. Yeah, Steve's a good guy. He does a podcast called the North Omaha Podcast now, which is really interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
Historical look at North Omaha. Yeah, it's tons of fun. If you're in the Omaha area, you should listen to it. It gives some good history from about the 1860s to about the 1960s is kind of what he covers. And big man, think about change going on there. So, guys, we thank you for your support, your Patreon support. Always appreciate it. You don't have to do that, and many of you do. So we appreciate your support of the show. I'll remind you. We did the Patreon reminder. Oh, don't forget about Set Eat Home. If you want to join the club, you get us done. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I'll send you a link back out to you. If you want to see how many folks we can, it's just fun, guys. It's just a fun thing. We appreciate that. So jim@theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, Christian Cyber Frontiers is fired back up again. And so if you haven't listened to us in a while, I have a show in the hopper that I hope to get out this weekend. Christian was at DEF CON and didn't have enough time to review the video. We did a hands-on honeypot demonstration, and it's sitting just waiting to be released. So if you haven't resubscribed to Cyber Frontiers, you might want to do that this weekend. A good show. You might want to subscribe to the video too on that one, or head over to the YouTube channel and get it. And again, I turned all the commercials off, so you don't have to worry about that. But this platform, web and video hosting, all provided by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Actually, that's Christian. You just know him. Head out to maplegrovepartners.com and hosting plans as little as $10 a month. So really inexpensive to get in there. Christian likes to keep that for our community. And if you're interested in doing that, he'd love to hear from you. Don't forget also Home Gadget Geeks, the mobile app, sponsored by LastPass. And got to reschedule Amber to get her back on. We missed her the other day. We'll get her rescheduled to come in. And of course, we appreciate their sponsorship of the mobile app. You can get access to that easiest way to listen to the podcast when you are on the road, homegadgetgeeks.com. We'll get that there as well. John, thank you for jumping in here. Stay around for a little bit of the post show. It's great to see you, but thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live as we head into the fall. We got some great stuff coming up for you. Just as we think about, I think next week, it is next week, we've got Moro data coming back in here. And, of course, we've been talking about them, and I've been tweeting about them. So the founder of ReadyNAS will be on. He'll be on next week. So we're going to have him on. He's started, ReadyNAS got bought by Netgear. Mm-hmm. And he has since moved on and started a new company called Moro, MORRO Data. And they have a little box. I wish I could pick it up. It's just a little nook. It's a little one of those Intel nooks.
Sure.
And a terabyte of cached data here in the house, which is kind of cool. Kind of cool to have. It's a small business app, not really for the home guy. It could be for the home if you move that. Actually, he's a podcaster, photographer, videographer. Kind of nice to have that much storage right at your fingertips, and then it can move it to Amazon. They have some Amazon storage. It's part of the service. Or you can back it up to Backblaze. If you want to do it that way, you can move it to OneDrive. You can move it to your Dropbox account. So pretty cool. And we'll cover that next week in an interview with those guys. We're excited about it. Again, we're live 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern out here at the AverageGuy.tv Live. John, stay around for post show. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. All right. Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. See how fast that goes?
I was a little surprised.
It's like, oh, dang. And I've been trying to, we've been going an hour and 20, but I've been trying to, during the summer, it's like, I should try to keep these about an hour. Just makes editing a whole bunch easier.
Right. Had some unique technology challenges when I was out camping.
Oh, yeah.
Merritt Reservoir is around 26, 27 miles south of Valentine. And there's one tower there. And it has U.S. Cellular on it. A number of years ago, AT&T went on the tower. So those two services work in that area. I've always had Verizon with work. Sprint for my personal phone. So Verizon, you get 1x. So you'll get email, but it's sort of like when it decides to tell you that it's downloaded them over time. So this year I bought an access point, like a little MiFi thing, and got an AT&T SIM. So okay, this is great. It's going to work. Can have connectivity if there's issues, because I plan to be up there for a whole week this year. Didn't work. It said I had 4 bars. Didn't work. And I think that's because the way that they license their prepaid services doesn't exactly work fully compared to people who pay postpaid services.
Yeah. Do you think it could have been like in a roaming situation too, or you were far enough off the network that maybe it was roaming and the prepaid plans didn't count?
Tower is line of sight from the campsite. In fact, I even bought an external Wilson antenna and put it on the car.
Yeah, but what would that? You bought the service here in Omaha, and even though, I mean, maybe the tower is in a spot where it's considered roaming, even though you're not.
Yeah, I turned on roaming as well.
Yeah, okay.
It's just one of those little bring your own tablet kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It works great in town. Now I've got 5 gig of data I need to use up by next Saturday. So
you should just go download something. Isn't that awful? You're like, what do I do with this data that I bought?
Well,
at least you got away, right? You got away. You didn't have to work.
Nope. It was nice. We had 2 nights of viewing, a little bit of clouds. One night it rained, right. But that's the night that it went from 102, 108 to 82 degrees, and then it was cool the rest of the week. Thursday night, I actually had on 2 hoodies and a fleece vest. It gets kind of chilly out there. It's kind of like being in the desert, right? The sand hills.
The temperature drops pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, by the way, for those following at home, that's north. You're in north central Nebraska, so ways out. You literally are out in the middle. And your idea was to get out because you were looking at the stars, right? I mean, you were doing some observing, so to speak.
Yes, me and 260 other people.
Oh, nice. So, like the club. Was this the club that got together? Okay.
Yeah, so it's the Nebraska Star Party. It happens every year. Next year, it'll be the 25th one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
It's a good time,
So did you guys party during the day so you could observe at night? Is that kind of the other way around?
Many people wake up at 11 in the morning because they'll put all their stuff away and go to sleep at like 5 in the morning.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, that's pretty cool. So do you camp? And do you have a camper, or did you do tent? And
we have a little camper. I don't. I've been lucky that the people I've always gone with have either had a camper or a motorhome. The last 2 years, I've actually taken my camper out. This year, you always wonder what happens, or you expect issues to happen when you're pulling a trailer. Well, we had one issue. I tried to avoid some roadkill, and it collected in the safety chains of the camper.
Oh.
And then it pulled the emergency electric brake cable out.
Yikes.
It didn't really affect the vehicle, but I did have to do field repairs. I had to buy another kit and splice it in with my existing battery setup.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yikes.
Because there isn't that many places out there buy it. Luckily, I went to Baumgar's, which is kind of like Tractor Supply Company.
Now there's nothing up there. Yeah, there's nothing.
And they had everything I needed in the store. Everything.
Really?
Yeah.
In Valentine?
Atkinson.
Okay. Atkinson.
But they have one in Valentine as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they had the trailer brake kit. I bought a grease gun and some grease to redo the axle while I was up there. Now, you have an Outback. I have an Outback. I have a 2011 Outback, and that's what I tow my camper with. but I only have the 4-cylinder. So you're probably curious as to what kind of a camper I have.
I only have a 4-cylinder too, but yeah, what kind of camper do you have?
I have a 13-foot Camp Light, totally aluminum camper.
Oh, old school
It,
or?
no, it was made in 2010.
Okay, so pretty new.
So the frame is aluminum, the sides are aluminum, the skin's aluminum, and it comes to about 1,700 pounds unloaded. And that is a full enclosed, I can stand up inside no problem camper.
Yeah, pretty comfortable for you.
Well, it's like being in an airplane. If it's all metal, even the cabinets, but
yeah,
I'm looking for functional, and
right.
it's better than a tent because I've been in too many rainstorms in the tent.
Does it have air? Did you use?
It does
air?
have air conditioning, and that's the sad part of the story. Last year it didn't work. I've actually bought a generator, so the generator wasn't powerful enough. This year I found a company that makes a capacitor control unit combo that worked here at the house. I could run it off of a single generator. Out there, you're 3,000 feet versus like 1,200 feet here. And with it being so hot, it could not put a dent. It actually overloaded the generator because it was so hot. So next year, I'll probably buy a second generator and pair them together.
How big is your generator?
2,000 watts.
Yeah. Did you get a little Honda? The little Honda one?
Actually, I got a Yamaha.
Okay.
I like the Yamaha because it has a separate fuel shutoff, whereas the Honda doesn't.
Yeah. When during that last storm, we borrowed some Hondas. Man, those are nice.
The nice thing with the Yamaha fuel cutoff is if you shut the fuel off, it will burn all the fuel in the line and in the carburetor, so it doesn't sit and gum up the plastic parts in the carburetor.
Pretty quiet?
Yeah, really quiet.
Is it self-contained or is it in a rack?
No, it's all little small handheld unit. It takes about a gallon of gas.
Yeah, they just go forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next year I'll have 2 of them. So I'll have to deal with the extra weight of another 40 to 50 pounds.
Yeah, put it in the car. Put it in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will you run them? Will you connect those in parallel?
Yeah, there's a parallel kit that you can buy that pairs them together.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Now,
yeah.
I mean, I could buy a 3,000 watt, but that's pretty big, and you're talking about trying to move that thing around.
Yeah.
Most everybody out there has 2 Hondas and a whole solar panel setup.
Yeah.
Because they charge their batteries for their telescopes as well as their camper.
Right.
And you're talking telescopes that people bring step ladders to look through because they're that tall.
Yeah. Big. Yeah. This is some serious business. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to send you the promo video that they just put together this week.
Have you thought about solar while you're out?
Actually, I did buy a solar panel this year. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know why. I got interested in this on YouTube. I get interested in this couple that have moved to Northwest, to somewhere in Washington, Pacific Northwest. And they're building an off-grid home. And this is, I did not realize this whole off-grid movement that's going on right now where everybody's trying to get off the grid, right? I knew there were a few, but there's this whole idea of homesteading and being off the grid that is just rocking YouTube, and all these people are doing it. So much so that there's now parody videos of these off-grid people, but I just had no idea that this was becoming such a popular thing, everybody trying to get off the grid. Well, because of that, generators are important and solar is important, and people are building these solar arrays and battery packs, and so that has become, that those are getting more now, which is good. It's good that solar is getting more popular. If that's what it takes, that'll drive the price down, and so that's a good thing if we get that. But John, I just didn't realize the whole solar off the grid movement has gotten so crazy.
Do you see Fully Charged on YouTube at all?
Mm-mm.
The guy who runs it is Robert Llewellyn. If you've ever seen Red Dwarf, the old TV show, he
No.
played Crichton. But he just had a news segment today where IKEA is having batteries and panels for sale now that you can buy for $3,000 for something that he spent, maybe 5 years ago, 17,000 on.
Mm-hmm.
It's already that much cheaper. And the panel I bought was only like $168 for 100 watt.
And
And mine's flexible.
Yep.
So it's not got a rigid frame. That way I can stick it underneath the cushions of my bed while I'm traveling and then pull it out. Otherwise, they're like 25, 30 pounds and they're rigid and stuff. But the Fully Charged show, they talk about electric cars and sustainability and things like that. And they're in the UK, but he travels all around.
Yeah, I'd like to get, I think in the area of sustainability, I'd love to get, I think solar is part of the key. It's not everything, but it could certainly, if new homes and, we could retrofit old homes and get some of that in there.
And you've seen those Tesla the new roofing shingles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually think that's the key right there. If we can make that thing work, there's some interesting, it's got to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Well, and Emily said, chat, she said she just talked to a woman who's working on making a podcast about being off grid last night. Yeah, Emily, there's a ton. Just go to YouTube and put off grid. And there are a ton of off grid podcasts. And there's some crazies. I mean, there's some normals out there too, but there's some crazies out there.
I think I know the couple that you're talking about.
Is it let's see what's there.
One, they have a Subaru and they just put air conditioning on their camper in the last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pure, let's see, hold on.
Pure Life.
Let's see, where are they?
It's probably in my viewing history.
Yeah. Well, I just watched their video.
Pure
today.
Life for Living.
Yeah, Pure Life for Living is and they're great. And man, they just get hammered in the comments. Just no mercy. If you ever want to see the worst of YouTube, go read their comments. It's just awful. And like the crazy thing is I watch them, they put out a video almost every day now. Real busy and active in the summer, so they're producing these videos. And people are angry, like they'll do something that's not exactly right, and people are just like, you're not listening to me, I know what I'm talking about, and you're gonna have this and that. And I mean, people, and then they'll be like, oh, he never listens to me, even though I say he never listens to me. And I'm like, why are you still watching these things? Like, if you're that frustrated, move on, just move on.
It's a strange intersection between reality TV and people feeling like they're part of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can have all the interaction you want, and I've seen good interaction on some channels, and others I don't read any comments. It's you lose your faith in humanity sometimes.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I was getting drug into the comments and I was getting angry, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch their videos. I'm not going to read the comments because they're just awful. It's so, one of the things I'm really thankful for is we don't get a lot of viewers to my YouTube channel. We produce these videos, and then I'm super thankful that I shouldn't say nobody, the people who want to watch them that are fully engaged in this community. One of the things I should have said about Patreon, one of the things I've been providing is for the Patreon supporters, they get pre and post show. So at any level, I make a video, put it on YouTube. It's unlisted, so you have to get the link from me in Patreon, and then I produce the audio as well through a kind of a secure Patreon only, feed, so they can listen to the audio if they want to catch the post show. It's just one of those ways of getting it, But I'm super fortunate that, like, you get some crazy followers. Like they have, I think they've got 70 or 80,000 people that have subscribed. It's pretty big.
185,000.
185,000. Yeah, right. And it's just a nightmare. Like their crowd comment is just a nightmare. And I wouldn't want that. I would block comments.
Well, they also, they are putting themselves out there more than the usual. So they've probably got some pretty good way of dealing with life,
Yeah, they must be. They must.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're getting a little sponsorship too. They're not talking about it, but they, new gear appears. They have a good relationship with their what's the sawmill. And they've had some stuff show up that you're kind of like, well, and it's not all new, but I kind of wonder sometimes, like, what if they're getting a little sponsorship in this? I got the feeling they came to this. Most of the off-grid people are poor or poorer and are doing this for nothing. They might start with $10,000 or $15,000 and like, we're going to build this home and we're going to do it over time. And I think they came into this thing like they had some money, and they're because they're going out to dinner all the time, and they're enjoying the experience, and they upgrade. They put some cool tech in this, in as they're building it. There's been some interesting tech that they've deployed. They have a drone and some other things.
It could be advertising income off YouTube, but if they're not specifying sponsorship, then that's in jeopardy.
Yeah, I don't know,
so to speak.
I don't know. I'm so, with Amazon being as difficult as they've been to me of keeping a link, they keep shutting me off. And I'm like, what? I'm doing everything you said to do. I've just got my second affiliate link revoked, and it's like, okay, sorry for selling your stuff. So, and then YouTube, like for a lot of the YouTube, content creators, they cut the way they pay them, and then they've been really picky about what counts, and they've been denying videos right and left. So yeah, Tony says Bezos needs the money now that he's the second or first richest guy, depending on the price of Amazon stock, right? Or Microsoft stock. Bill Gates still owns a ton of Microsoft, and Microsoft's at record prices right now. So, but yeah, I don't know. And I do find those two interesting to follow, and I kind of like what they're doing, and it's fun to kind of keep. I tell you what's in along the same lines. So they got the sawmill, and I've enjoyed watching other people use their sawmill. And I don't know what's relaxing about watching people cut boards. But
have you seen Woodworking for Mere Mortals?
No, no.
He does a project every week where he is building something, and he's done it for many years. I think he's got videos going back to 2010. And his presentation style is a lot of fun, and it's straight to the point. He makes the advertising fun. It's kind of cute. So I just subscribe to him. I've never done any woodworking, but I enjoy it. There's another woodworking channel called Get Hands Dirty. It's a girl in Europe. And just the way she produces her videos, it looks good and it works. And she's making actual stuff, But there's like the majority of I think the YouTube channels I actually subscribe to, they're making things. And that's part of my attraction to it is creation. You're doing something, you're making something. And one of the recent ones I started watching was about doing astrophotography. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll start doing that now. That I can do if I put my head to it. Woodworking, yeah, I could probably get there once I'm retired or whatever, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's some cool stuff. I enjoy it when I find a good one. But like I've been watching them. They've been doing some reclaimed lumber and stuff, and you get these old
like barn
100-year-old.
boards and such.
Yeah, or like I watched one where they tore out this dam, really old dam, and it had these big, gigantic pieces of lumber from 150 years ago, and they look terrible. And then they start cutting into them, and they're just beautiful on the inside, and you're like, oh, that is sweet. Cut that into a board, make some floors out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something relaxing about that for me. I don't know what that is, but late at night I'll watch before bed. I'll watch them turn that stuff and into some interesting things. The other thing we were talking about grilling. I've been watching Stephen Reichlin. I think that's how he pronounces his name. Reichlish on PBS. He's a PBS guy. He does Smoke University and
yes, I've
that
seen
guy.
that.
Yeah. And he's a super funny guy. He's not pretentious at all. He has a really dry style, the way he talks about the stuff, but he just loves what he does, and he's super fun to watch. But he's really making me a better grill or smoker, whatever. We got a rump roast the other night, and Sarah marinated it, and then we did a 3-hour smoke on it. And I have an iDevice temperature probe. By the way, key to cooking meat, you got to know the temperature. We didn't take this seriously enough in younger years. And when you're cooking burgers and chicken and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter. But when you're cooking those bigger chunks of meat, it is so nice to know what that center temperature is.
Yep.
So jam that device in there, set it on smoke, and just watched it for 3 hours, drank wine, hickory smoke blowing out of the grill, smells great outside, right? And it was Sunday, so it was beautiful, right? You were out. You were probably still out camping on Sunday? Or
we had come back by then, okay. Yeah.
And it was beautiful, though, right? I mean, it was 85. Yeah. It was gorgeous. So just sitting on the deck, drinking wine. And that thing hit at 135, pull it off the grill, take it in, let it rest. Oh my, we cut that open. Oh my God, it was so good. It was 6 pound roast.
Wow.
So good, John. And I could never have done that in the past without that temperature probe, that iDevice's temperature probe to keep track of how hot does it need to be? I put a new thermometer on the outside of my grill, and then I was actually actively measuring the temperature inside of the meat. All the difference in the world. We talk with Mark and Mike on here. We've had a couple shows around grilling. And they've been telling me this, and I've been watching it. And man, when you get it right on a smoke, holy cow! And then I brought it in, and we were cutting it, and the kids were like, my oldest boys were in there like, oh, this is gonna be good.
May have to check that out.
I mean,
when we moved, we got a new grill, and we've only used it like 5 times. And I've been cheating myself. Every time we want to cook like maybe pork chops, I actually get an electric skillet out and use the electric skillet. I'm not using a frying pan. I'm not using the oven. It's the electric skillet. It's like, I don't know if it's because that's the way I kind of grew up, because we had a skillet when I was a kid. And that was the easiest way for us to make things.
But do you like it that way? I mean, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
It's how you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chops and burgers and chicken, those are easy. Like you can cook those a variety of ways, but you get into those bigger cuts of meat.
Yeah.
And knowing the temperature is just everything. And Ryan Parker, who's come on here a couple of times, he's also in sous vide. Have you followed the sous vide movement?
I've heard of it. I'm not sure I would want to try it.
Well, it's weird when you think about it. At first, you're like, okay, I'm going to put this in plastic. I'm going to seal it up, and I'm going to boil it. Well, no, you're not boiling it, because boiling is too high of a temperature. You're slowly heating this meat. Mm-hmm. Okay, so right, you want, like, for medium rare, you want 135 to 140, right? Something like that, 130, 140. So you're bringing the meat to that temperature using the water, this circulating water, right? And it's keeping that temperature. What's weird is you think, okay, it's not browning it like we are used to, we right? So just throw it on the grill for, heat the grill up really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Throw it on and brown it so it looks, you get the consistency, the caramelization, whatever that you're looking for. But the inside is what's important. And when we overcook, that's when you ruin it. And so sous vide cooking is really interesting. And the more I get it, and the more I look at it, the problem is the prep for those. And you got to have the stuff to seal the bags with. So, but you can take, chicken, you want to cook it at whatever that is, 165 or whatever it is. I forget. I always have to look it up, but you can throw it in the bags, cook it, and even in the stuff that, you can have some marinade in with it. So it is pretty easy. Then brown it, because you don't want to eat that. Right. You need it visually needs to look a certain way for us, right? Yeah.
Maybe if you do creme brulee and you got one of those torches, you can just pull it out and then hit it with the torch.
Yeah, you could. You could torch it. Well, and I would just throw it on the grill for a few minutes. Fire up the grill real fast, throw it on. In this case, I was almost gonna. I didn't. There's an idea of a reverse sear too. Well, so a lot of people will take the meat, they'll sear it first, then put it on. Because I have a 2-burner grill, so I had the burner on, and then you always want to smoke with on the cooler side, right? The indirect. So the heat coming up, and then it was coming over. And we were in hickory smoke. Jim was asking about that in the chat room. So I bought the tube. They have these amazing tubes or something. I think that's what they're called. And you just put these pellets in it and light the pellets on fire, and then it fills up. And I got about 2 hours out of a tube of smoke, basically. That reminds me, I need to go pull that off I set it over on the side, off the side. I never went and grabbed it. I need to go do that. And I thought I would reverse sear it. So I put it in there at a really low temperature, let the smoke kind of billow and do its thing. Well, after 3 hours, it was the outside was exactly the way I wanted it. And we cut it into it. It had the smoke ring. And since it's the rump, it had a nice layer of fat on it too that we put on the top side. And so that just kept it. I didn't have to do any basting. We took some onions. So Sarah made kind of a marinade for it earlier. We took some onions, and I literally just chopped them in half, and then not quite quarter, but maybe 6 cuts. And we just threw those onions in the pan. I made a little tinfoil pan for it.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, those onions were so amazing. Like cooking in the meat, dripping and
they sucked it up through the layers.
They did. Like a blooming onion you'd get at whatever, Outback or whatever. Better than that. And not deep fried, and not, these were halfway through through it. I just picked them up and put them on top of the meat so they would kind of not burn. And man, they came off. That may have been the best part of the meal. we were just, I was like, oh man, I wish I had made, next time I'm gonna make 2 onions. They were so good.
So the tube, you said, is that like a prepackaged bought thing?
No, it's a metal tube. Let me see if I can find the link for it. I think if you go to Amazon.
So you have to put your own materials in it.
You buy these pellets. You buy these wood pellets, and you just load the pellets in the tube. And then they recommend you take a torch, light the end of it until you get some of them burning, and then blow it out, and it'll smolder.
It's like a punk. You just
It's like right on. It's like a big punk, and it'll just smolder across the tube. Well, what I found is if I put it on the edge of my grill, there's a lot of heat coming up, and that heat will light that whole thing on fire. Not on fire, but it'll hot enough that it starts smoldering. And so I got let's say smoke tube. So it not and there's a bunch of here's it's a 12-inch smoker. Hold on, I'll throw this in the chat. This is the one on one of our grilling shows that the boys there, it's in the chat room, that one of the boys talked me into. They're a little $30 tube. When you think about it, I probably paid for the this is where I think it's maybe a little unreasonably priced, so to speak. Like if you start thinking about the cost on this thing, you're kind of like, well, okay, so I got a $30 tube, and then the chips or the 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 wood was about $10 for a 2 pound package, and I can probably do 4 tubes out of that. So that's
Hmm.
250 250 a piece of meat, so to speak, if you're going to pack it full and smoke for 2 hours or less. It's about 250 and so you start thinking about the price, you're like, all of a sudden you're like, to get smoke, it's not bad. Like, it's not exorbitant, and it's really delicious. But it's like, I should probably not think about the prices on this thing too much. It's
My
not bad.
my curiosity would be the pellets. What's in the pellets?
Yeah, these particular ones. So the ones I bought are supposed to be free of any binders, or they're supposed to be 100% hickory. In this case, here
Hmm.
I'll drop the link for the pellets too. These are the ones these guys swear by. I was gonna do if I was gonna do this a lot, I bet I could buy it in a bigger package and get it a little bit cheaper. But these amazing 100% hickory barbecue pellets, 2 pound bag, $10. And they're
Huh.
supposed to be no added fillers, binders, or oils. It's supposed to be just 100% wood. So, assuming there's truth in advertising.
Yeah, because my wife has a food allergy,
Yeah.
so I want to be.
But it's so
You
that's
use it to smoke cheese. Huh.
yeah, I'll cold smoke it. It's been a good, I mean, this is the very first time I've used that tube for this long of a, um, yeah. Other Jim says razors and refills. Well, yeah, there's probably a little bit to it. It's super convenient, and it's a lot easier than trying to find hickory wood
Yeah,
to do this with, and yeah,
it's
maybe a little more sustainable.
it's reconstituted hickory from sawmills that have cut up the wood for some
Yeah,
other
right,
purposes.
right. No, and it worked. It worked out. It worked out super well. I think the next thing I want to do is baby back ribs. The
Mm.
Stephen Reichland, he says that's if you're doing ribs, the very first ribs you got to do is baby back. Those are the easiest. They take the least amount of work. They taste great. So I'm going to try and I think I'm going to try and pick up a couple racks and do baby back.
My wife likes ribs, so
Mm-hmm.
that would be a good choice.
Yeah, that'd be good. And I just have a basic grill. I don't have a rotisserie or any of those. We're trying to we with all the kids, right? With 5 kids, we got in a real eating rut. And
Same
we probably,
things,
we had about
quick and dirty.
7 things that we did. And Sarah's really good, my wife. She's really good at the the prep, and I'm getting better at the grill. So we're trying to do more of that kind of stuff. And we've been something we've been working on is grilling our vegetables,
Mm.
which we haven't been doing a lot of, and we're starting to do that. She brought home. We're in the land of corn, right? So she brought home fresh picked like yesterday corn. And she's like, hey, she's this weekend we can
Leave the
grill some
husk
corn.
on and grill it on the grill.
Yeah. So we'll water them, we'll soak them overnight and then throw them on the grill this weekend and grill them up. I've got a fire pit too. Where I may go for just go get some wood and get a real hot fire going and roast them that way too.
Well, if it's going to be cool in the evening, Saturday night, they sing maybe thunderstorms.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to go out with the telescopes, but we called that off.
Yeah.
It's the only hobby where you look up and go, oh, not tonight.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I'll get some sleep.
Yeah.
What you say? Yeah. Other Jim says super easy for a gas grill. Yeah. The roasted corn is so good on a gas grill. Works great. I've got a really good grill for it too. It's just the right size, and I can probably get about 10 ears on there, maybe 8 to 10. And so you can just really let them, really let them go. And I get the lid down, which will increase the heat. Yeah. So I've been trying to add a little bit of tech to my grilling, and I bet I've sold 10 of those iDevice temperature probes. Bluetooth. And now Weber owns that line. They bought it from iDevices. And so they're selling these now. And
you know Dave Coover, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever he always would get one or two people at work to go in and get like a half of a cow from the farm.
Good way to do it. Western Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about that. We used to do a food service here in town, Home Pride, and they would just bring food out and put it in a freezer. So we have a big upright freezer, and and the kids still come over, on the weekends. So it's not like where it's just the two of us. And so we'd be in a good place to do a half. That'd probably last us a good year.
Yeah. Chad at work, they had like 2 or 3 freezers, and it would last them a year.
Yeah.
So chest freezers.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, we'd buy we go in half on a cow at the fair. So this would be at the county fair. These are well fed, well taken care of animals, right? No shots, no steroids. No, this is 100% organic. And this was before organic was cool, right? This would be the early 80s. And by the way, you mentioned the last time we had a solar eclipse in 79. I remember that. Like I was in 5th grade, and my teacher had us come to school early, and we watched that because I was in California, so it was just a partial. Yeah. And I remember watching that. He had the pin and against the, he was doing it against the wall.
The paper, and yeah.
It was cool. So I remember that, 79. Shoot, now I forgot where I was going. Other Jim says now he's hungry. Yeah, that's what talking about this stuff. What was I saying? I'm gonna come back here in just a second.
See if I can.
What was I saying, chat room? Where was I going? I got distracted with the 5th grade story. Okay. I want to. I want to do. I think one of the things I want to do is get a barbecue grill. Get a Weber. We had a Weber growing up. I loved cooking on charcoal, and actually, as a teenager, my dad was terrible at it, and so he made me do all the cooking, and so I ended up learning to cook on charcoal. That's what we had. We had a chimney and get that stuff started and pour it in, and we never smoked stuff, but we only did burgers and stuff. We couldn't, and then. Later, my parents won, maybe 10 years ago, maybe more, 15 years ago. My parents, in this crazy thing at church, won this smoker, this charcoal smoker. So I get up there to see them. They're up in Kalispell, Montana, and my dad's like, "Why don't you cook something on the smoker?" I've never done this before, so I figure it out. And I think the first night we cooked burgers, and because you could use it as a grill too. You could move stuff around. So. He said, why don't you think you could cook a turkey? It's a big jump to go from a turkey from burgers to a turkey. So I watched some videos, and or maybe I don't know. This would have been, if it was 10 years ago, I guess we had YouTube. So I made this envelope for the turkey, and I cooked this thing in their smoker, and it took 5-6 hours, but he just loved it. So every time I come up there, he'd get the biggest bird he could. I'm like, "Dad, I need you to get a little smaller. It takes forever when, on charcoal to do a bird like this." But it was always great. It was a ton of fun. Put it in there, smoke it, throw chips in. So it was good.
I added 2 videos from the Star Party.
Oh, cool.
One is from last year, and then the other one was a promo that they put together this week. The 2016 one is like totally drone footage of the whole thing. So it's kind of like it's on Vimeo, so it's all the people's campers, the tents, the scopes, and then the entire area that it covers, and it's pretty big. They always tend to do the video right after sunset. You sort of hear it, and you look up, and you wave at it.
And this is out in Atkinson?
South of Valentine.
South of Valentine, okay.
So that's Merritt Reservoir is the lake, or reservoir, so to speak.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so is it like a community thing that do they do community meals and stuff, or
they have
you
some
buy into
community,
this?
they have some, so like if you wanted to, you could pay for the deli meal or the burger meal, like $10. It's all part of the registration, or you don't have to, you can make your own. There are field school that the kids can be enrolled in, so like they can learn about the stars and such. And then on Wednesdays, we have it's presentation day at the high school in Valentine. So we'll have speakers come in and speak. This year we had a person who videoed in from Belfast to talk about the eclipse. You know, she says, "Oh, I'm going to be there. Probably be in Nebraska in a couple weeks."
You should be able to hear the music.
Yeah.
Belfast?
Yeah, it was her name was Dr. Kate Russo. She's got a couple of books about the eclipse that she's done. She sort of saw one and then got hooked and started going to many of them.
They're kind of cool.
Yeah.
They are kind of cool. If you're watching us on if you're watching us live, maybe I should say why. it's late. I guess it's been entertaining. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. The barbecue talk is always good. Kyle Wilcox out of our Facebook group said, "Hey, maybe we should start an average guy barbecue page." And I was like, I need one more group or page to maintain. Like I need a hole in my head. So I said, no, let's just talk about barbecue in our group. This is fine. We're in that spot. So I saved it for the post show, but I am really enjoying doing some more, kind of expanding my food horizons a little bit. And this rump roast with this onion, the way we did it. And then I actually have a little frog mat for the vegetables on the grill. And so while the meat was resting, we threw carrots and zucchini, which this time of the year are great, right? It's so easy to get zucchini this time of the year. And so we threw those on there, and you cook those to just they're, little burn marks, Oh, that's still sitting out there too. I need to bring that mat in. so just remember, like, crap, I didn't bring that mat in. Although it doesn't really matter. You throw it on the fire and it burns off whatever's on there. And God, it was so good. The kids, like, when my kids were younger, we never would have got them to eat this stuff. So at the Star Party, I saw a big tent, and they looked like they were grilling. So I might not have been listening. So can you buy into meals and stuff, or how does that work?
Yeah, they're like $10. So they'll have like usually a Tuesday and a Thursday night meal. Then they have door prizes after the dinner. My wife actually won an eyepiece this year.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea. They get any sponsors or anything for that? They have people
yeah. There's a company called Explore Scientific. This year they donated a telescope, and somebody won that.
Nice.
Which was, I think, a $700 and some value. Yeah. The eyepiece that my wife won, that's nice. That was like a 300 and some.
Nice.
So a lot of the companies will donate to the door prizes, or the club will get some items to put in the door prizes as part of the budget. They're also, they're a 501c3. So the Nebraska Star Party organization is made up of members of the Omaha Astronomical Society and the Prairie Astronomical Society, because they're out of Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of become members of the board, and they put that on every year. And this year, there are some people who missed the event because they were sick, and that's like, it's not the same not having them there. It felt really weird.
Yeah.
It's an interesting experience because usually we'll do a bunch of viewing for a few hours, and then we'll go walk up the hill to what they call Dobro. These is where all the big scopes are, right? And it's on asphalt, so it's level for them to put the scopes on. But you walking around, you can't see anyone's face other than by starlight. And you can kind of see their face a little bit, but you mostly go by sound. So you get to know everyone's voice. So I'll be like, I'll walk up and say, well, hey, Eric. Oh, hey, John, how you doing? And you can't see each other at all. It's an interesting experience.
Yeah, that's great.
And you can't use any regular white flashlights. You have to use red dim flashlights to preserve your night vision, because it takes like 45 minutes to 90 minutes for your eyes to get used to the darkness. And as soon as you see white light, it's another 45 to 90 minutes. It depends upon the person. But yeah, it's amazing to see that stuff. It's a different pace. You're just sitting there relaxing. You're looking at stuff. Try not to worry too much, right? It's nice to get disconnected. I learned about a year and a half ago to turn off my email notifications. I don't have it buzz when I get emails, and only have like important system events make noise. It's really helped me as a person to not be anxious about every single email that comes into my inbox.
Yeah, doesn't it help?
Yeah. There was a study that I read partially earlier today that they asked people to go 24 hours without having any notifications on their phone. And several people liked it. And so they followed up with them 2 years later, and they were still kind of doing the same thing. And they said that they felt better. They were less stressed at work. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have a boss that's like, you got to read this now, that it doesn't
it's different
help.
on your job. It's different on your job. I do a lot of notifications, but they don't stress me out. It's not I get to help people. And so they're almost always not stressful. So I don't, it's just kind of a different way of looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
But there are days on the weekends I don't check it very often, once or twice, maybe during the day. Hey, in the chat room, I dropped, speaking of looking at stars, so I dropped a link to this guy named Don Mockholtz, who I grew up with. And when I was a kid, we would go in California. I'd go with him. I went with him a couple of times. And he was always looking, he was doing this, and he was looking for comets.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2004, so he'd been looking, I would have gone with him in the late 70s. And I actually think he found one in the late 70s. And but he has a comet, Mockholtz comet, right, or comet Mockholtz, which is named after him. He found this thing, and in the day it was a big deal, to have a comet named after you.
It says there are 6 other long period comets named Mockholtz.
Yeah. This guy Don, let's see, they referenced him. Where's he at in here? I guess it says. The comet Mockholtz, formerly designated blah blah blah, as a long period comet discovered by Donald Mockholtz. This is Don E. Don E. Mockholtz is his name. But it's I've gone out to, when I was a kid, I went out a couple times. He took me out one time, and there was this big it was a the moon was going to come up while we were out looking, and
Mhm.
he would normally, like you, he'd stay out till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. For me, at about 2 we gave up. I was getting tired. I was young, I was a kid, 14 maybe, 13, 14. But he brought out this really high power binoculars and let me watch the moonrise. Dude, that was so cool. Like in pitch black, in a field, seeing this thing. We'd gone way down south, and we could get away from most of the Bay Area light pollution in
Mhm.
that day. Today it would be really, really hard, but this would have been late 70s. And so it was fun to go out and just watch this thing come up. Other Jim said, you were talking about not being able to see the faces. He says, sounds like star fishing. When you're out early in the morning, it's dark and you're fishing. So that was cool. That got me interested in it. Not interested enough that I actually got into it. I was never disciplined enough to sit there and do. He was doing these patterns, and they were looking for stuff, and he was recording stuff, and
Yeah, he had to be methodical about it, so he
yeah,
didn't like see something twice or
uh,
miss something. Yeah.
yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that in the dark, in the military, we'd be out. It'd be pitch black, and you couldn't see anybody, and you'd have to. That's the same thing. You would recognize people by their voice, not who they were. It'd be pitch black in the tents, and nobody wants to. Hey, you're getting very little shut eye as it is, and so
Mhm.
you come in and wake people up, and so you'd have to wake up and then kind of recognize who it was, by their voice.
Yeah.
Like, okay, who are you?
There was a story from this last star party that there was a family up there, and they had a really young daughter with them. She's, I think, 5 or 6, and she stayed up until 4:30 in the morning. She was just so energetic and happy to see stuff. Every time someone say, "Hey, do you want to see my favorite object in the telescope?" "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." She'd pop up, because they thought maybe she was falling asleep in the chair, but no, she'd just get right back up again, go look through the scope, and get all excited and run around, and it was something else.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Maybe I'll have to sneak out with you sometime and check out. I just have never looked. It's been a long time since I've gone out and looked at stuff through a telescope.
Um, the second Tuesday of every month, there's a group out at Zarinsky,
Hmm.
Lake Zarinsky, out near the soccer fields.
Mm-hmm.
Then usually every month down at Mahoney, there is a group of people as well. I usually go out to the Mahoney one.
Yeah. Is it pretty dark out there? Do you get pretty good
It's dark
conditions?
enough, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mahoney'd be better than
Yes,
Zarinsky.
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, the next one at Mahoney is Friday the 11th.
We ought to do. We've talked about it a while back, but we got to talk a little bit more about your rigs, your the stuff that, or just some of the technology that goes into some of these telescopes.
With 3D printing, it's amazing what the new stuff's coming.
Yeah.
There's new stuff that Celestron's put out. It's a camera that it automatically recognizes where you are based upon the stars it's looking at, and your telescope's automatically aligned. Normally, you have to put in your latitude and longitude, the date and the time, and all this extra stuff. Then you have to align to several stars. Now with GPS and these cameras, it's almost instantaneous. Because normally, like, okay, I got to set up the telescope. That's going to take me 40 minutes. Now I've got to line the telescope. That's going to take me 20 minutes. Now you can just set up and go.
Yeah.
It saves so much time.
Yeah. You would think that would get so much easier, with it would go in, recognize where it's at, do some calculations, and boom, you're in.
Yeah, and there's now Wi-Fi modules you can get for these go-to scopes. So you can actually just use your tablet and say, I want to look at this, and the scope goes to it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Do you use that app on your phone? I've got this one called let's see, where is it? It's called Skyview, where you can you basically start it, and then
You hold the phone up.
yeah, you point it
Yeah.
anywhere, and it tells you, and it's got all the satellites,
Mm-hmm.
what's overhead.
Should tell you ISS passes as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. I just logged in and said upgrade now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Sometimes, the most interesting, a lot of people, the first question is, well, what telescope should I buy? It's like, well, do you have a pair of binoculars? If you like to look through binoculars and you get a taste for it, why not pair of binoculars? Because you can use them during the day too,
Yeah,
and they're easy to
yeah.
use, right? Then maybe graduate to a telescope. In fact, all of my early viewings that I did as a kid, when Halley's Comet was coming through,
Mm-hmm.
I used a pair of 7x35 binoculars.
Really?
Yeah, I actually tracked it for months out of my front yard with those things. I still have them. They were my dad's, so I still have them. They need to be cleaned up a little bit, but
Yeah.
I've since graduated to 15x70s, which they have tripod mounts because glass 70 millimeter is a little heavy, and your hands get tired really quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'd want to put those on a tripod for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any place you can go online and see live in real time telescope? Is that
There are
doable?
some, yes. There's even places that you can rent time on.
Yeah, that would be
There's
kind of interesting.
itelescope.net. Let me see if they have any live stuff going right now. They've got a video. They have all sky cameras and telescopes. Of course, there's pricing because you have to log in. But there was a guy in Italy who was doing free stuff where he would talk about what he was looking at and showing. But that was like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure if he's still doing that now.
I would think it could be kind of interesting to, where you don't have to even go out, but just,
One of the
watch with somebody else.
presentations that was last week at the Star Party was two guys deciding to build their own observatory outside Lincoln. And you know about Branched Oak, that little area of Lincoln. Well, there's a group that got some land, and they made the Branched Oak Observatory. They have an outreach center, like a classroom, to do outreach and teaching for kids. And they have some concrete pads for people to bring their scopes out. But these two guys decided to build their own building, right? Not only that, and there's the tech angle, they have 4 computers. Each one is to operate one of their telescopes that they have in the building. They're just now getting the building roof automated, so it will slide off by itself and then exposes the scopes.
Mm-hmm.
But their data backhaul is their problem because they're only getting less than a meg up.
Right.
So they're trying to do remote access into the computers. They actually bought a commercial long-haul wireless solution, but where they're connecting to, it's slow, on the other end. So they're getting close. It's just all the time that they spent building it, and they found a lot of scraps and building the armor, building the supports for the roof when it rolls off. Yeah, it's something else.
Good project for him. Good project.
Yes. I think they're both one's a doctor and one's a radiologist, I believe.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that kind of stuff's fun. I just, you think the things you could do with the telescope now with telescope technology, just as you were talking about, being able to set that up quick, it gets its own bearings. You could there's so many things you could do. And now with resolution being so good, shoot, I don't even need to go outside. I could set my telescope up outside, connect to it, and run it, do some things where I view it from inside the house.
Yes, there's There's a few Raspberry Pi telescopes
Hmm.
on Thingiverse where you print out the parts. You get a Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi camera. There's no eyepiece portion. It's just the camera. So you get that, and you're just looking at everything through the camera.
Yeah, but you'd want some, you'd want some telescope. Will you put the camera on the telescope? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it takes the
Yeah.
place of the eyepiece.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Oh, I'll throw this in the chat room. The Omaha Club has a photo gallery, and there's a gentleman by the name of Mark Pryor, and he uses a Canon DSLR that it's been modified for doing photos, for astrophotos. He spent 3 months at the beginning of the year in New Mexico, and out of those 3 months, he only had 2 nights where it was cloudy. So he'll do photos, like he'll spend 6 or 7 hours in an evening taking hundreds of photos of one object. Then he uses software to stack the images together to get rid of all the noise and combine them into one photo.
Hmm.
Some of his photos are actually 2 nights of observations.
Wow.
But the examples I put in the chat room, and he is good. He certainly knows what he's doing.
Local guy, where's he work?
I think he's retired now.
Okay.
Hence the 3 months in New Mexico. Yeah, there's this little RV park down in the corner of New Mexico, just right across the border from Arizona. And that's where they welcome rock climbers, bird watchers, and amateur astronomers because it's dark.
Yeah. Ooh. Looking at his picture of the Milky Way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. We don't see that very often here in the city because you're never out there and it's too bright. And you get out in the darkness and you see what, we amazingly sit out on the edge of this spiral galaxy we're in. And we get this opportunity to look into what primitive man must have thought with no lights, seeing this in the sky. It's no wonder they made up a whole bunch of stories about it,
Mm-hmm.
And pretty, we see pictures of it, but we're pretty insulated. If you live in the city, you almost never see it. Not this way.
You can see it at Mahoney on good nights.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice because you're only driving like maybe 35, 40 minutes to do it.
Yeah, there's a good shot of it right there. That's one of my favorites. Like here we sit out on the outside.
You can see the people in the foreground there.
Yeah.
The red lights and the trailer and
this of course is with a little help, right? This picture is with a little help.
It's probably several photos stacked together.
Yeah. Little HDR probably.
The nice thing about doing a wild field photo like that is since it's such a wide lens, you don't get as much star trails. Because if you go maybe past 30 seconds, you're going to get streaks. Mm-hmm. Unless you have a tracking mount, in which the camera moves with the sky. But yeah,
that's cool.
That was a nice year. I was out there that year too. That was really nice.
It's getting hungrier earlier now. I'm just getting tired thinking about how it's night outside. Hey, if you're watching us, thanks for hanging around. John, hang tight for just 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody else go to bed. But guys, thanks for the few of you, Emily and other Jim and Ryan. Hey, Ryan. I don't know if we've met yet. And Drashna, thanks for hanging around tonight. I hope it was interesting. We never know what's going to happen in the post show. John, we'll have to have you back on. Maybe we'll have to do some telescope tech stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. A deep dive. We'll catch you guys later. Thanks.